Hi everyone, welcome to the week 5 of our systematic theology. This week we are going to be focusing on the doctrine of creation and divine providence. Okay, uh, our focus is for you to be able to explain doctrine of creation ex nihilo, articulate theological accounts of the purpose of creation and divine providence and its classical categories, and of course, critically engage the problem of evil within the providential theology. That's our focus for this week. Let me start with the doctrines of creation and providence. Answer two foundational theological questions. When we look at that doctrine of creation and divine providence, the question it asks is, why is there something rather than nothing? Why is there something rather than nothing? Number two, how does God relate to the world he has made? This is where the philosophy of religion will be very, very useful. I don't know if that has been given to you as a course, but if you have that course, if you've had that course before now, whatever I will be saying today will make a lot of sense to you. Well, if you have not taken that course, you may have to read it yourself. Now, creation addresses origin, while providence addresses ongoing governance. Two things there. When we talk about creation, what should come to your mind is origin. And when you hear providence, what it addresses is ongoing governance of the creation. Now, together, they frame Christian metaphysics, what we call Christian metaphysics, anthropology, ethics, and suffering. Looking at creation, there is a biblical foundations of creation. If you read Genesis chapter 1 to 2, Psalm 33, verse 6, John chapter 1, verses 1 to 3, Colossians 1, 16 to 17, and Hebrew 11, verse 3. Okay. Scriptures affirms God is the sole creator. Okay. And creation is intentional. Creation is declared good by the creator. And creation depends continually on God. Those are things that scripture affirms. Now, creation ex nihilo. What do we mean by that? Creation ex nihilo means out of nothing. Out of nothing. It affirms God did not create from pre-existing matter. God did not create from pre-existing matter. Two, God did not shape external chaos. God did not shape external chaos. Number three, matter is not co-eternal with God. Matter is not co-eternal with God. This doctrine was articulated strongly by early church fathers in opposition to Greek dualism, that is external matter, Gnosticism, and pantheism. I did some of these courses in my first degree. I'm just remembering some of them now. The theological significance of what we're talking about now is that God's absolute sovereignty. God is not limited by pre-existing materials. And number two, radical dependence of creation. All that exists is contingent. And three, distinction between creation and creator, guides against pantheism, and of course, ground of worship. Creation is not divine. God alone is. Creation is not divine. God alone is. So that's the ground of our worship. All right. Looking at the classical theological developments from the perspective of Augustine of Hippo, who emphasized creation with time. Time begins with creation. He also emphasized God's eternal will. He also emphasized creation as divine gifts, according to Augustine of Hippo. Later, medieval theologians further clarified that creation is a free act of God, not necessary or compelled. Okay, we need to understand that about the development that takes place in the theological perspective of the creation ex nihilo. The purpose of creation. Why did God create? That's the question. So let me ask you, as an individual, why did God create? Why did God create? Now, Christian theology offers several interrelated answers to this. Number one, for God's glory. Creation reveals divine wisdom. When you see what God created, you see wisdom, you see beauty, you see power, you see goodness. Psalm 19 verse 1, the heaven declare the glory of God. So God creates all these things for his glory. Number two, for relationship. Creation provides a sphere of covenant. Human participation in divine life. Image bearing vocation. Because humans are created imago Dei, in the image of God. Genesis 1:26-27. Come, let us create man. Let us make man in our own image. Make man in our own image, in our likeness. To have dominion over this. So humans are created imago Dei. For love and communion, that's another one. Creation is not necessity, but generosity. Creation is not necessity, but generosity. God creates not from lack, but from fullness. Not from lack, but from fullness. God created from abundance, from surplusity. All right. So also the goodness of creation. Christian theology affirms matter is good, embodiment is good, work is good, culture making is good, and of course this counter gnostic declaim, for material reality. When you look at gnosticism, gnosticism is an heresy. Okay, that believes so much in material reality. Part of the heresies of Gnosticism is he said there's a one aeon that came from heaven that came to Jesus and used him, and when he finished using him, the aeon will depart. Heresies, they believe in material reality. Okay, it counters also hyper spiritualism and anti-intellectualism. All right, we need to understand some of this. Looking at the part 3 of this, which is providence. Providence. What is providence? Providence refers to God's preservation, that is sustaining creation. Concurrence, God's concurrence, that is working with created causes. And government, directing all things towards divine purpose. He said, he's in charge, he directs all things. He's in charge of humanity. God rules the affairs of men. Okay, that's providence, preservation, concurrence, and government. Now, looking at the biblical foundation of providence, Matthew 6:26-30, Acts 17:28, Colossians 1:17, and Romans 8:28. Providence affirms God is actively involved in sustaining and directing history. When you see what is happening in the world today, they are not accident. They're not just happening. They're not just things. There's somebody behind whatever is happening in history of humanity. Please take note of that. Let's look at classical perspective on providence according to Thomas Aquinas. Aquinas distinguished between God's eternal plan, providence, his temporal execution, government. Okay, God's work through secondary causes without eliminating creaturely agency. That is the perspective of Thomas Aquinas. Looking at providence and human freedom, there is detention. How can God be suffering? Humans be responsible? How can humans be responsible? Okay, there are major views around that tension. There's determinism, compatibilism, libertarians, freedom, and open theism, which is modern. Okay, each attempts to preserve divine sovereignty and moral responsibility. Please take note of that. So looking at the problem of evil, okay, the problem of evil this time. So the classical formulation: if God is all powerful, if God is all good, if God is all knowing, if God is all, omnipresent, He present everywhere, why does evil exist? All right, these are the questions in the mind of so many people today. When accidents happen, people ask this question: the problem of evil. All right, there are there are different types of evil. There is moral evil, which is human wrongdoing. All right, there is natural evil, act of God, disaster, sickness, natural evil. There is structural evil, systemic, injustices everywhere. All right, there are structural evil. There's natural evil and there is moral evil. So there are different types of evil that those are the types of evil that exist. There is what we call Augustine privation theory. That is, evil is not a substance, it is a privation, lack of good. Okay, evil results from disordered will. That's Augustine's privation theory, right? Looking at the free will defense, is that God permits evil because genuine love requires freedom, and freedom allows the possibility of rebellion. That's what the free will defense is saying, that God permits evil because genuine love requires freedom, and freedom allows the possibility of rebellion. Another one is soul making, theodicy. There's soul making theodicy, associated later with figures like Uranus. He associated later with figures. Talking about suffering is a forms character, deepens moral development, and shapes spiritual maturity. That's the belief of, soul making theodicy. There's another perspective there, which is Christological resolution from Christian theology. Ultimately, answers are provided to the question of evil. So, Christian theology answers evil not abstractly, but historically. That's how Christian theology answers evil, not abstractly, but historically. The cross affirms God enters suffering, God absorbs evil, God redeem evil. God promises restoration. So providence is not detached control. It is cruciform governance. Cruciform governance. Quickly, let's look at the few ones we have more to close. Pastoral implication. Okay. Avoiding pastoral errors. Do not equate suffering with punishment. They are not the same. Okay. That's one of the pastoral errors people are making today, equating suffering with punishment. Number two, do not offer simplistic explanations. All right. If you don't know, go and learn and read more. Do not deny mystery. That's mystery. Do not minimize lament. When people are lamenting, don't minimize it. And what should be healthy pastoral response? Healthy pastoral response. We must encourage lament. Yeah, let people lament. Should affirm God's presence, even in the midst of all this. And also hold tension between mystery and hope. That's any way we can respond to this and avoid speculative certainty. Speculative certainty. In summary, creation teaches God alone is eternal. The world is contingent and good, and humans bear divine image. Imago, they don't forget. Why providence teaches God sustains and governs history. And human agency is real. Evil does not escape divine redemption, no matter what, because the problem of evil remains mysterious till today. Okay, but Christian faith insists creation is purposeful, history is guided, suffering is not ultimate, and redemption has been promised. So that is it. That is it. So if I throw it to you today, why is creation ex nihilo essential for Christian theology? And that question I want to throw to you is this: does providence undermine human freedom? Another one is, which theodicy do you find most compelling and why? How should pastor address suffering without theological reductionism? Reductionism. These are the questions we need to ask as we continue in this class. I know this is a lot, it's huge. Listen to this video over and over again. Read the portion assigned, to us this week, and it will make sense to you. Thank you for joining this and for reading this today or listening to this, and I hope to come across your way again in week 6. Take care, everyone.